here live. This is Donya Craddock, co-owner of the Dog Bookshop, and you are live with our FIFA World Cup Road to the Cup series that we have been doing since November 2025. It has been a long road, but it has been a fun and exciting road, and I have a very special guest for you today. I know you guys have short attention span, so we're going to actually jump right into it. But please try to share this live. Try to share. This is going to be an amazing, dynamic conversation. You know, the Dog Bookshop is near the epicenter of where everything is going to take place at the Dallas Stadium. So we've been on this series to just get our residents, because I know how United States citizens are. Y'all are not sometimes in tune with what's going on globally, but we're here to fix that. So I have a very special guest. All my guests have been helping us fix this in the United States because we want to be tuned in. And I have Paul. Oh my God, I have Paul Tenorio. Did I massacre the last name? Please tell me I don't.
Tenorio, you were close. You know what's funny?
Paul Tenorio. I got it. But thank you so much for joining us today. And I want to say, Paul is covering the USA team. He has been involved with the soccer for over 2 decades, right? And he is bringing us a book. I know we've been sharing it quite a bit today, The Messi Effect. And you know, I have been on this Messi, just from Maradona to Messi, just trying to figure out and trying to understand the impact that that's going to bring to the United States. He has done an amazing job in Miami. But Paul, introduce us. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, so as you said, I've been covering soccer in some form or another in the United States since 2007. I started at the Washington Post. Spent 5 years at the Post, which is my hometown newspaper. I grew up in Alexandria, Virginia, playing soccer. My father was an immigrant from Costa Rica, so that was the sport I learned from when I was a baby. Covered sports at the Post for 5 years, and then moved down to the Orlando Sentinel and was covering some college football. And then an MLS team landed in Orlando, and they knew that I had written a lot about soccer. I had done some stuff when I was there in Orlando previously, some features. And they said, do you want to move over to soccer full time? And I said, absolutely. It's my passion. It's my love. So I've been back full-time covering soccer since 2014, and just trying to dive into every level of it. You know, I love to tell the stories of the game itself, watching games, breaking things down on the field, but I've also really enjoyed and loved telling stories away from the field and around the business of soccer. And that's what this book was, and why it was kind of the perfect fit for me, because when Messi arrived, you know, it's not very often that American soccer is at the epicenter of sports in America, right? We're used to the conversation being set by the NFL, Major League Baseball, NBA, NHL, college football. And Messi arrived in 2023 and everyone was paying attention. And it was this great story on the field.
Okay, we're gonna stop you because I don't want you to dive into Messi, because we're gonna go into that courting Messi, because that is like, I don't want you to get into your book that fast, because I want
to No, I was just gonna say it's a book that has my passions of what I've done as a journalist, which is on the field, but also off the field of the business of soccer, and kind of the understanding of, for people who are, you know, tuning into the World Cup, to your point, who don't know what's coming. And now they know that, we're going to have all these games in our backyard at Dallas Stadium. You know, hopefully this book and what I do at The Athletic is a way in to that, to understand kind of what the sport is here in this country and how it's grown and evolved.
Oh, thank you. I mean, when I seen the book, I said, this is what we need. This is the excitement that we need. When I literally have my son call me from his job and said, hey, I need to know everything you've been talking about for the World Cup. And mind you, he's in the trade business, so he's dealing with a high Latino population. And so I think now, when he called me and asked me, I said, we're finally tuning in to the world of soccer. Now, Paul, we're going to have to, because I have a crossover audience between NFL, NBA players, and all those guys. So when we say football, you guys, I want to keep it respectful. We have to do this. So I will be saying football versus soccer. And I think you've interchanged that too. But what should we? Okay, if we're talking about Messi, we're talking about Messi Miami. So can we just go say soccer or should we do the football?
Yeah.
Which one?
No, I think soccer is totally fair to say. Like, let's not forget soccer. Actually, the word soccer, it started in England. It was the nickname for association football. And back then, they shortened words in this kind of like cut the first vowel off and cut the end off and put on it. And that's how it went from association football, cut the A off, SOCC, association, to soccer. And in fact, a lot of people growing up in England that I've spoken to, they've grown up watching shows with the word soccer in it. There was a famous magazine in England that was a soccer magazine. And so now it's become this weird thing where it's like, oh, it's an Americanism. Well, it's an Americanism that started in the UK. So when we're talking about American soccer, I think it's totally fair to call it soccer. Sometimes you will hear me say kind of the global football economy, because once I talk about the global sport, I usually default to football. But in this country, man, it's absolutely soccer.
Well, you heard it. You heard it firsthand. I am going to use the word soccer. In some conversation, they said, no, football. Football is watched by billions of people. And then they broke it down to me, Paul. They said, okay, you have the NFL, which is the highest watched sports in the United States. And they said, well, that's about 1 million people or so or something. That's what I think that's rough. They probably were, being a little bit negative. And they said, well, soccer is 1.5 billion people that watch it, whether they're watching it in their homes, whether they're at the matches. It's about 1.5 billion. So what do you do?
Yeah, it's a totally different beast, right? I mean, I think, what FIFA likes to say around this World Cup is it's going to be hundreds of Super Bowls. And I think to some degree, that's right. Not totally. Not every game in this World Cup is going to feel like a Super Bowl or be watched like a Super Bowl. But the World Cup final is the most watched sporting event, and it will be the most watched sporting event of the year. And, just like we had the other day, the Champions League final, where you have people all around the world stopping and tuning in to watch the two best club teams in Europe face off against each other. And so we are used to this kind of American tunnel vision mindset of the Super Bowl is the biggest event of the year, but around the rest of the world, that's not true. And certainly not every 4 years when the World Cup is happening. We're going to see some events here in this country that are going to have billions of people around the world tuned in. I mean, and even the U.S.'s opening game on June 12th at SoFi Stadium, hundreds of millions of people are going to be watching that all around the world, watching to see this U.S. team against Paraguay, and watching because it's the start, one of the first games of a tournament that people love so much, for a game that they love so much.
And this is Paraguay first time in the World Cup since 2010, was it? I can't remember. That was the first
that's right. I mean, but that's what's special about this tournament is you have these countries who pour everything into getting to this tournament, and it's not easy. And because of the expanded format of the tournament this time around, there's 48 teams. We've been used to 32. You're going to see countries that have never made it before, like Cape Verde, Curacao, two of the smallest nations to ever qualify for the World Cup, are both going to be playing. Haiti is back in the World Cup since the 1970s. There's going to be a lot to root for with some of these countries who aren't typically there. Uzbekistan, Democratic Republic of Congo, like these countries that have these wonderful histories that want to be a part of this tournament. And in a way, like maybe the best way to relate it is somewhat adjacent to the NCAA tournament. It's like you might want to count out UMBC as a 16 seed against UVA as the 1 seed. Well, they won that game. There's always going to be upsets. And I think this expanded format is going to open things up a little bit, where we might see one of these smaller nations take down a traditional power. That's the beauty of sports.
I cannot wait to see what's going to come out. I know we're going to get into the projections a little bit later, but I do want to jump into some current events before we get into your book and some of the projections. But let me just take us down the road since draw period. I just want to recap some of that for people that are new, trying to tune in, trying to grasp the beautiful game and understand the beautiful game. I was actually at the draw. It was at Billy Bob's in Dallas. I went area. I stuck out like a sore thumb, but I went, because it's a high Latino, mix in the Fort Worth area, and they are really serious about the sport of soccer. So, but I want to be immersed in the full energy of the World Cup. So I went to match day. I think it was like December 5th. They had it, Trump was doing his thing in New York. And so just take us on a journey to where we are today in terms of some of the milestones. And I almost want to say, can we throw in a little history in there from what you know, and I'll add in from what I know, because when we started the series, the Venezuela and the impact of Venezuela and that war. I was literally about to do the review of Pele's book with Brian Winters, and he said, Donya, I had just been called into CNN to deal with the war, so we cannot have our conversation. And then at that particular time, a lot of people said they were not going to participate in the World Cup because of U.S. invasion. And I was like, gosh, how big is it that I'm getting on a conversation? And he said he can't do it because of what happened in Venezuela. So before, again, you guys that are just tuning in, just kind of go over some milestones from Paul's perspective, and just to give you a better insight, because if we listen to Donya, it's going to be all skewed. So, but I was
I mean, the World Cup draw is a huge moment, because it's when you learn who your country is going to play against, right? And that, in a tournament format, that always dictates your best chances to move forward. Who's in your group, how you get out of your group isn't critical, and then who you could be facing if you get to those knockout stages. But then, yes, there was a playoff after that, the continental playoffs, the European playoffs that happened to determine the final teams to make the tournament. So, for example, Venezuela didn't end up making the tournament. But that is something that is, unique to this global game, right? Is that you are going to have this inevitable clash of politics in sport on these biggest stages. So us being the United States and being involved in multiple conflicts, there's a chance that the U.S. faces Iran, which we're currently at war with, in Dallas in the knockout rounds of the World Cup. If the U.S. finishes second in its group and Iran finishes second in its group, it will be U.S. against Iran in Dallas. I think on July 3rd would be the date of that game. So this is what global football is you have these moments, these potential clashes. And so since the draw we had in March, there was another international window. Europe had its final teams qualify for the tournament. There were the global playoffs as well, and that finalized the bracket as it were for the FIFA World Cup. And now here we are in the final window. Every team is playing kind of tune-up matches. The U.S. just finished up a game against Senegal. They play against Germany, and then it'll be time for the World Cup, which starts June 11th. So it's here. All the preparation, all the pomp and circumstance, FIFA and Trump and the village people at the Kennedy Center, all that stuff. Like, let's leave the show behind. Let's put the real show on the field, which is the players and the games. And that's the exciting part. It's like we've covered all this other stuff, which is important. I'm not downplaying, the ticket prices and some of the issues that we've seen going into this tournament, but it will be somewhat of a relief to get to the soccer, because that is what people fall in love with.
And I also want to throw in there, during the series, I also talked about what happened in the AFCON when I think it was Senegal that walked off the pitch, and then I think
Morocco.
Morocco against Morocco, and then they went to court on it, and they overturned and gave the win of the AFCON to Morocco. And I was like, oh my gosh. And you look at those people, that's how big this beautiful game is. The whole country of Senegal was wrapped around the sport, and it was hurting. And I can't remember what exactly happened. They walked off the pitch, and I think that was good against the VAR rules. I can't remember everything what happened, but I think that was a big thing in terms of AFCON and their contribution into the World Cup. I don't know if you remember that.
That's right. I mean, that's right. Obviously, it was a huge controversy, and actually FIFA put out more defined rules for this World Cup to say, if you walk off the pitch, it will be a forfeit immediately, because there was this huge controversy where Senegal left the field, came back out onto the field, completed the game after the penalty kick miss, went to penalties, won the game. But then in retroactively, the game was rewarded to Morocco, and it was obviously enormously controversial. And so FIFA wanted to make sure that they got out in front of that for the World Cup, that if any team were to leave the field in protest, they would forfeit the game. One of many new initiatives going into this tournament that will be worth keeping an eye on. Another one is an injury rule that was put into place in Major League Soccer that kind of tested it first of if a player stays on the ground for longer than 10 seconds and doesn't need treatment. There are some exceptions if there's a particularly egregious foul, if the player receives a yellow or red card. They wouldn't be part of this if there's a head injury. But if in an effort to reduce time wasting, if a player stays on the field down on the field for longer than 10 seconds, they have to come off the field for a minute. I mean, this is something new, something very different. Just the other day, Japan scored playing a man up in a friendly because of this new rule. So some interesting caveats that are coming into this tournament of the way FIFA has to kind of adapt and change as the game changes. But, a big rule change because of what happened in that AFCON final.
You guys, I'm on with Paul Tenorio, and he is just following. He is just and you guys, we have not rehearsed anything, but he is just responding and cleaning it up, you guys, because I am not a soccer expert, but I've been studying. And actually, Paul, I was a soccer coach. but that was for pre-K. I was telling them, you're SpongeBob, you're Squidward. This is how we play the sport. But I have grown since then. And my nephew, I wish I had a picture because you could see him catching the goal. Like his length. I'm gonna send you a picture of that. But his
please. But this is what we love. This is what we love about the World Cup. It's a chance for people to be introduced to the game, to fall in love with the game, to do what you're doing and dive into these wonderful stories that are happening all around the world with the sport played in, that is the most important sport played in most other countries around the world. And it's coming to your backyard. It's coming to our backyard. And I want people who don't know soccer, have never played soccer, have never loved soccer, coached soccer, or done anything around soccer to say, oh, you know what? I'm going to try this out. I want to see what's going on. I'm going to turn on the TV. I'm going to turn on Fox or Telemundo and watch these games. And I'm going to learn a little bit about this team or that team because there are so many amazing stories. Like just today, we launched at The Athletic this enormous project that we're doing where we spoke to fans from all 48 countries involved in the tournament. And I had the privilege of meeting with fans from Haiti and speaking to them about their culture and the identity of the Haitian team and what it means to be a fan of Haiti. And, that's a country that no one would talk about in global football about challenging for a World Cup, but they still bring a really important and cool story into the tournament. And that's what I want people to do. They say, okay, maybe I don't know soccer. I don't love soccer, but we do love good stories, right? If you like to read books, you love to find good stories. And I think that's what sports are. It's just storytelling. And the World Cup is the best type of storytelling because there are going to be so many people from so many different backgrounds, so many different countries. And the great thing about the United States is people who are from other places, immigrants who have a chance to touch home during this tournament and go root for their countries, root for their teams. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Like I'm so lucky I get to go to these games and experience it. And I think more of the country is going to be able to do that this summer.
And you know what? I am on your coattail. I am experiencing this game through you. Ever since I reached out, I think back in October, I DM'd you, and I've been just following you just out because I want to have this experience. Even though I could tell you I do have a kinship, of course, towards Africa. but I find myself being a global person because I've been involved. I've had conversation about Spain, about Portugal, about Zambia, about all these different Croatia, England. I think I know more about Manchester United than I want to know, and Barcelona, the Barcelona and the Madrid rivalry, and then Mexico and their wanting to be more like Argentina. So I've had a lot of those conversations. It's just been such a great journey for me. And I do want to add that you said it's in our back door, like it's 15 minutes away from me. But if you do not know that our games is going to kick off with England and Croatia. No, that's the 16th. We have another one on the 12th. I can't remember which one it was on.
I think you have the Argentina game on the 16th, right?
No, Argentina and Austria is on the 22nd. Gotcha. I know we're gonna talk about you covering the U.S. team because I was trying to steal you away, and I can't steal you away because you are focused on the United States men's national team. Paul has been focused on that. Paul has been doing the predictions, working with the rosters. He's just been doing a lot for the USA team. But since he wrote the Messi Effect, you guys, I was like, he's got to be here for the Argentina-Austria game, and he can make a stop at the bookstore. Yes, he can. Y'all make it happen. They kept saying, no, Donya, look, it's the schedule. He is with the USA team. So this is the last stop before we jump into the book, because I'm just taking everything I can from you. I know because you're going to get busy. And you probably didn't think I knew as much as I could know about this.
No, I love it. Again, I mean, look, what I want to be able to do and take advantage of this summer for me is, whether it's this book or having these types of conversations, my work at the Athletic or anything else, is to have conversations with people about this game. Because I love this game. I was lucky enough to be introduced to it, like I said, with my dad, who was an immigrant from Costa Rica. I want more people in with me, diving into the game, diving into the sport, whatever I can do to have conversations about it, to reach new people, more people, and bring them in. To your point, I mean, Dallas has more games than any other city in the country. The Dallas-Fort Worth area, and that's phenomenal. That's an opportunity for people to go and watch teams and watch the game being played at the very highest level. And yes, I'll be with the U.S. team. They'll play in L.A. and then Seattle, then L.A., and we'll see where they go from there. But I think it's a really special opportunity for this team, which has heavy expectations around them. The further this team goes in this tournament, the more games they win, the more people who never watch soccer are going to tune in, because people love to do that, whether it's the Olympics or other international competitions like this or the World Cup. We remember these types of moments. 1999, Brandi Chastain, the U.S. women's national team, going to the final. She rips her shirt off when she scores that penalty, right? We can go through. We can look at the USA hockey team, the way even just recently when their matchups against Canada. I don't always watch hockey, but I was tuned into that game, and the whole country was, because it was something cool.
I know, right?
I want that to happen. I want people to tune in and fall in love with the game.
I want to go ahead. Okay. U.S. team. Let's talk about the U.S. team that you're working with, and who are the key players that we should watch. I say the U.S. team, even though I said, of course I have an affinity for, some of the African teams, but I want to tune into my USA team. I want to work on being, an international fan and saluting our teams. They talked about, I think we had one conversation before where they were talking about the U.S. and Venezuela baseball game. And they said, those fans for the baseball, they just came out and they just supported. They took over the whole stadium in the United States. It was Venezuela.
That's right. So that's right. That happens sometimes.
I want us to have that same energy when it comes to the USA. And I tell you, I went to, I'm not selling the Rally House, but they do have a lot of the merch, and I am getting my USA team merch, So.
Well, I will say this. There's a lot to root for with this USA team, especially if you're from the Dallas area. We'll get into that in a second. But this group is known as kind of the golden generation of American soccer. It's a group of players who have been together for a really long time. They've been playing over in Europe since they were teenagers. And there's been this sort of expectation that this home World Cup with that special group of players was the opportunity for a U.S. team to make a run to somewhere they've never been before, which is a World Cup semifinal, at least in the modern version of the game. The 1930 World Cup, the U.S. men went to the World Cup semifinals, but it was a much different tournament back then. And so what I love about the team is they are such a reflection of what this country is. You have people who are children of immigrants, Mexican Americans. You have people who were born in Germany, born in England, to U.S. service people who are stationed over there. You have people from all different cities across the country, different backgrounds. And so what I hope happens is when people turn on the TV and see this team, that everybody's watching has a chance to maybe see a little bit of themselves in it. But there certainly are connections to the Dallas area. One of the star players of the team, Weston McKennie, He's from Dallas. He grew up in the Dallas area. His father was a serviceman who was stationed over in Germany at one point, and that's where Weston McKennie picked up soccer. He was in Germany, went across the street to this elementary school that was on the first day he lived in Germany. He went across the street with his older brother and saw these German kids playing, and he said, "What are they? They're kicking that ball. What's that? It must be hurting their foot." And that's how Weston McKennie ended up kind of getting involved in soccer. He's from Little Elm, Texas, is where he moved after that and grew up in the Dallas area. Ricardo Pepi, he grew up in El Paso, Texas, son of Mexican immigrants. He also came through the FC Dallas Academy and is a player who has a chance to play up top for the United States national team. Chris Richards is from Birmingham, Alabama, but also played for FC Dallas coming up in their academy. He's maybe the best defender on this U.S. team, center back. So some really special players. And obviously when we talk about the stars of the team, Christian Pulisic, Tyler Adams are two examples. And then Folarin Balogun is a name that most people don't know. He was born in the United States, but grew up in London. And, he has a chance to be a breakout player for this U.S. team this summer.
They said they expect him to lead the attack. He's going to go for
That's right.
So
that's exactly right.
So I'm excited. I've been trying to, get caught up with my USA team, even to the box-to-box playmaker that you said that's in, I think McKennie.
Yeah, Weston McKennie. Yep,
yeah,
right.
yeah. So I think he's one of those playmakers. So I'm tuned in to. I'm trying to tune in to USA and just being a fan. And I need to take a moment because I've done horrible with the chat. And somebody said, okay, we're going to get into his prediction, Argentina or Mexico. That's a no-brainer. But one of the guys asked, can you ask him to comment about the viral this USA video of their practice? Is that something that happened or what happened? Did somebody catch us?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think of what he would be referring to of what happened in the practice. I think I saw a video on social media just on the guys playing like a quick transition game, and there was concern that there were turnovers or something like that. That's kind of the design of the drill. The design of the drill is to stretch people and work on transition moments. But look, what you need to be more worried about really is what they look like on the game field. Mm-hmm. And what I would say is, like, in terms of transition, that is the area I'm watching the most with this U.S. team. They looked very good against Senegal the other night in the attack.
Okay.
Right? Scored 3 goals. Everything was clicking. But in transition defending, they are susceptible. And we saw that against Senegal with a couple of mistakes in transition. We saw that in March against Belgium and Portugal, albeit two of the better teams in the tournament. But still, they get stretched in transition. There's a lot of open space. The back line, the goalkeeper position are two of the weaker spots in this team. So, in a way, even though I don't make a big deal out of a 20-second clip from a transition drill in training, I think that transition defending is an area that I will be watching with this U.S. team when we get to the World Cup for sure.
Okay, and then there's another question: Argentina or Mexico? I think.
Look, I think it'll be really interesting. I think Argentina could be one of the teams that's ripe. The big teams ripe for an early upset. This is the defending champions, still an incredibly talented roster, but their approach going into the tournament was very interesting in the terms of the level of opponents they picked. That being said, Argentina also went through CONMEBOL qualifying, which is one of the most difficult tournaments to come out of, and they were very good, downright dominant at times in CONMEBOL qualifying. So the quality of this team, the fact that they still have Messi on the team, makes them incredibly dangerous. I do want to say, I don't think enough people are talking about Mexico. Mexico playing at home is very difficult to beat Mexico at home. Mm-hmm. Playing at the Azteca at altitude, which is significantly higher than Denver, playing and beating them at the Azteca is going to be very tough. If they win the group, they get to stay in Mexico for another 2 knockout rounds. If they win those games, they're coming back here to the United States, where they are still a home team here in the U.S. When they play games in the U.S., they sell them out. It's very difficult to play against Mexico. So of the 3 host teams, I really don't think we've been talking enough about Mexico. This is a team I think is more than capable of making a run in this World Cup. Could be one of the dark horses in terms of teams that people aren't talking about, that are going to start making noise once the games kick off.
You're right. They're not talking about them, because when I talk to people, everybody's saying Spain or Portugal, and I'm like, wow, nobody's really talking about Mexico. And I did cover them when I covered the book, sibling rivalry between the Mexico and the United States, and just how players have to go back and forth between the two nations and still have that allegiance and loyalty to their Mexican team and their roots. So like you said, some of these young people, like with the United States, they have been playing together forever, or some of them have been playing together for a long time. That helps with the relationship. So because
and look, that idea is cultural identity. It's something I've written about a lot. I grew up in a household where my mom was American and my father was Costa Rican. I didn't feel, people used to ask and still ask, are you more American or more Costa Rican? Or they say, oh, well, you're obviously more American than you are Costa Rican. Like, no, like I'm both American and Costa Rican. Like you can't take that away from me. It's just a fact. It's my dad was Costa Rican, my mom's American. I'm 50-50. Mm-hmm. But it's hard for people to understand that you can have a national identity. I grew up in the United States, and you can have a cultural identity where in my household where I was growing up, I was eating gallo pinto, and I was growing up in a household where they spoke Spanish, and we went to parties and ate Latino food and watched Salvador Gigante. And you can have a cultural identity and a national identity, and those two can be at conflict with each other. But it doesn't mean that when you make those choices that you're more one thing or more another. It's just that sports forces you to make that choice. And it's very difficult for many of these players to make those choices. And in fact, what's very interesting about this World Cup is when you look at the Mexican team and you look at the American team, there are people on each respective team that were born in the other country. Mm-hmm. So Alejandro Zendejas was born in Mexico, grew up in Texas, played for FC Dallas. He'll be representing the United States. Ricardo Pepi, his parents are Mexican. He was born in the U.S. He'll be representing the U.S. Christian Roldan, born to Mexican-American immigrants. He'll be representing the U.S. On Mexico's national team, though, they have Brian Gutierrez, who grew up not too far from where I live now in Chicago. He's playing for Mexico. They have Obed Vargas, who was born in Alaska to Mexican immigrant parents and is playing for Mexico. So that shows you the difficulties of that split identity of feeling pulled to both sides. And I'm actually working on a story for The Athletic. There are going to be a number of Americans playing for different countries at this World Cup. American who grew up in Wisconsin playing for Bosnia. A German American who's has an American parent who's going to be playing for the German national team in a few days against the United States. So we'll see examples like that all across the tournament.
What are the rules? What are the rules for that? Because I remember talking to, when I was talking about the book Passion, and we're talking about Spain, they said they got a lot of Congolese players, but then they became immigrants, so because they couldn't recruit players anymore from Africa. And so what are the actual rules around this in terms of players? Because we know Messi plays for Miami, but he's playing in Argentina. For those that really don't know, what are the rules?
Yeah, so if you have a passport for a country, you can play for them internationally. And obviously different countries have different rules in regards to passports. One thing I would say is FIFA only allows you to switch countries one time. Mm-hmm. So as an example, Obed Vargas and Brian Gutierrez, the two players who are playing for Mexico in this World Cup, they both represented the United States. They had to file what's called a one-time switch with FIFA to be able to switch to the Mexican national team. They can never switch back. So, it depends. Some people were, like I said, born here. There's a couple examples like Balogun, a player who was in the 2022 team, Yunus Musa, who were born here in the United States when their parents were visiting. They were visiting siblings that lived here, born here, then moved away right away, but they were born here. So they're eligible to represent the United States. Others whose parents are citizens of the country and are eligible. Some who are naturalized citizens and become eligible to represent the country. So that is the kind of the basic way that you're eligible. But FIFA has built in some rules, and they've also built in some rules, I should say, regarding residency to prevent countries from quickly nationalizing players to then recruit them for their national team. So there are some rules around residency that apply. But for the most part, it boils down to as basic as like, are you eligible to be a citizen and to have a passport? And if so, then you can play for that national team. Wow. And I would say in regards to your question about Messi, players can play anywhere they want around the world in the club level. But when it comes to representing the countries in the international level, you need to have that passport.
Okay. So I think you done covered all my terrain that I wanted to go through, and you did it very well. And you just gave me some more ammunition, some more ammo to be dangerous in this World Cup space. By the time we go to Morocco in 4 years, I'm going to be ready. Okay.
There we go.
So let's jump into your book, The Messi Effect. I hope you guys seen the videos that our team put together. It's amazing videos just to get the energy, for our audience that we're trying to get connected into the World Cup. But take us into The Messi Effect, the book. Just why did you, and I think you touched on it early on, but let's really dive into The Messi Effect and what made you decide to write that book.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like there are these moments that happen in a sport that you cover where you recognize immediately that it's a different story. And I always feel like as a journalist, you're a storyteller. You're looking for stories that an audience is going to latch onto. And we were at the epicenter of something different and something special when Messi arrived. Hundreds of media members flying to Fort Lauderdale to be there for his first training sessions, his first game. Obviously, that opening goal he scored against Cruz Azul. And so it started as a Messi story. And I wanted to take people behind the scenes with Messi and Inter Miami into the locker room to show what it was like for these players at Miami to suddenly be teammates with the greatest player who's ever played, that would be something super fascinating. But I also recognized early on that this was a business of sports story because Messi started conversations at the board of governors level, the ownerships and executives of the league about where the sport should go and what MLS's place would look like. And so I wanted people to be able to pick up this book who are diehard MLS fans and soccer fans and Messi fans, and they would get something out of it. They would get something cool and different and special. But also that people who are saying, hey, the World Cup's coming this summer. I want a book that's going to explain to me where soccer is in America, how it's gotten here, what the influences of growth have been, and where it's going next. And so, this book kind of covers those three areas. It gives you a heavy dose of kind of cool behind the scenes with Messi, moments with this star that people want to be able to connect with that no one else has seen that's in this book. It gives you a really good lay of the land of what has helped soccer grow in America. And then lastly, it goes to show how Messi's impact in MLS has forced the stakeholders of the league, the billionaire owners, the commissioner, the executives, to think about how that league needs to adapt and evolve in order to keep up with this American soccer landscape that has grown very rapidly and that is increasingly competitive. For us soccer fans, we know we can watch the English Premier League every Saturday morning. We can watch the German Bundesliga. We can watch Spain's La Liga. We can watch Mexico's Liga MX. Any soccer we want, we can turn on our TV and get it. And that's what MLS is competing with now. And how does that change how they think about the future of the league? So, this is a book about Messi in Miami. This is a book about the business of soccer. This is a book about how professional league evolves in real time. Mm-hmm. And I hope that all those audiences can get something special out of it.
Let's talk about Messi's upbringing because we talk about him as a child. He was not, I think he had some type of, handicap. I can't remember.
Growth disorder, really. He was very small. So he had to take a human growth hormone in order to grow. And that's actually what led him to Barcelona. His club in Argentina knew his old boys couldn't afford or didn't want to, depending on how you look at it, pay for his treatments. Whereas Barcelona agreed to pay for all of the treatments that he would need in order to get this growth hormone to grow. He's not a very tall person now. That's with the help of growth hormone. I imagine what he might have looked like if he had not had those treatments. But yeah, I mean, this is a player who grew up in Rosario, Argentina, and from a very young age was special. He didn't surprise anybody. He was scoring hundreds of goals for Newell's youth teams, gets recruited to Barcelona at 13 years old, moves over to Spain, and is brought along in La Masia, which is the academy for players in Spain, and becomes one of the best players in Spain, and then eventually the greatest player in the world, playing for at the time, what was the best team in the world with Pep Guardiola as the manager. And this book goes through a little bit of that. It's not a biography of Messi. I'll say that. But what it does explain is, why did Messi end up in America? What what pushed this player who's only ever played for the very best teams in the world to choose Major League Soccer? What were the influences for that choice after having so much success as he did at Barcelona, with Argentina winning the World Cup in 2022, that kind of took the pressure off of him to choose how he wanted to end his career.
That's why I brought that up, because I wanted to look at the, bringing it back to the United States, the courting of Messi. And I think that you had that as a chapter in your book. Was it Miami really courting him, or was that an American strategy for the MLS to bring it into our households, into our regular, to make it marketable? What do you think on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are so many reasons why any team or any league would want Messi there. He's not the most public person. He's not like David Beckham was when David Beckham arrived in MLS, right? He did interviews with Good Morning America and ABC News and Oprah. Anyone that wanted to talk to Beckham, he was ready to talk and promote the league. Messi's not been that. Messi, one of the things that's amazing to me about Messi is, in an era where we know more and more about our stars, where we have social media and their Instagram accounts and all these things that give us access deeper and deeper into who they are, Messi is one of the most famous people in the world, almost purely based off just how good he is at soccer. We don't really know that much about him by design. He likes it that way. But what I thought was cool about the recruitment of Messi, which I initially reported for The Athletic and then expanded on in the book, is sometimes we see a player signing happen and we think, oh, that just happened, right? Like, Messi was leaving PSG and he won the World Cup in 2022. And it was just kind of like Miami had it at the right moment in time. They bopped in and said, hey, we'll sign you. And Messi said, okay, I'll go to Miami. No, that recruitment started 3 years before that World Cup. And there was a secret meeting between David Beckham and Jorge Mas, the owner, and a few other executives from Inter Miami, who flew over to Barcelona before Messi left Barcelona and went to PSG. They flew there. They went up in the back entrance of the hotel, up the service elevator, into a hotel suite, and in comes Jorge Messi, Messi's father. And they have this secret meeting with Jorge Messi to say, we know he's not ready yet, but when he's ready, we want him to come to Miami. And they presented to him their ideas. Inter Miami didn't exist yet. It wasn't even a team, hadn't played one game. And yet they're here saying, once this team launches, once this brand launches, we want Messi to be a part of it. So, I think it sheds some light into the processes behind these star players, that this is not a snap your fingers decision. This was a recruitment that took years and years. It took ambition. It took planning. And it led to one of the biggest and most important moments in American soccer history, which was Messi sitting on his couch in an interview with 2 Spanish outlets saying, I'm going to Inter Miami. I'm going to sign with Miami. And that kicked off this phenomenon in the summer of 2023 when Messi landed in Fort Lauderdale and started to play for Inter Miami.
And what you have, 4 trophies later, a team that had never won anything to winning everything. I think you guys, I actually put some of the stats on there. He topped the league in set points records, qualified for the MLS playoffs 2 times. And so there's a lot of things that never happened with the Miami team. And I think that is part of the Messi effect. And I know you do have a chapter in the book that talks about from Messi to, I think, was Beckham to Messi, or Messi?
That's right, from Beckham to Messi, because there are a lot of interesting parallels there. A lot of people remember when Beckham came, he left Real Madrid, the biggest club in the world, to sign with the LA Galaxy in 2007. And there's a direct line that you can draw from Beckham to Messi. Beckham comes to the league, MLS, they create a rule. At the time, they kind of nicknamed it the Beckham rule. Now it's called the designated player rule, that allowed teams to sign players outside of their budget. And Beckham comes for that reason. That rule was used to sign Messi. As part of that contract, Beckham got the option to purchase an expansion team at $25 million. That team became Inter Miami, which eventually signed Messi. So you can draw these lines directly from Beckham to Messi, and there are a lot of similarities between the two of them. Messi's contract gave him minority ownership in Inter Miami, very similar to the contract that gave Beckham that expansion team. There was an agreement between Apple and Messi where you can see kind of the fact that there was value that the partners of MLS were getting involved in this deal. So, I do try to lay out these parallels and these comparisons because it shows to some degree history repeating itself, but also evolving. And I think it's important for people to understand too, we can look back at what we learned from those moments, what we learned from Beckham coming to MLS, what MLS got right, what they got wrong, what the Galaxy got right, what they got wrong, and apply it to what's happening in Miami. And I would say also, like, the penultimate chapter of the book, I sit down with Jorge Mas, the owner of Inter Miami, and I talk to him about what is his vision for what the Messi effect is for Miami after Messi's done playing. And he talks about keeping the brand of Inter Miami linked to Messi's brand. Well, that expansion team that Beckham got was a fantastic deal for David Beckham. It's a $25 million team that eventually was going, these rights were going for $150 million. Beckham got in way below the cost, right?
Wow.
And people think of it as compensation for Beckham, but don't forget MLS got something out of it too, because 20 years after Beckham signed with the Galaxy, his brand is still tied to Major League Soccer. He's still one of the faces of MLS. So MLS linked itself to Beckham for 2 decades now. And Miami's doing the same thing. Yes, that 10% that he got of Inter Miami ownership wise in that first contract, that was about compensation. And that's how we framed it at the time. But that means that Miami and Inter Miami and Messi are going to be linked as brands. That's a pretty valuable brand to link yourself to if you're a Major League Soccer team.
Yeah, you know what? You hit it right on the nose, and I'm happy that you addressed that, because I wanted to know how that courting happened, and so you hit that right on the nose. What are some things that fans do not know that you learned about Messi?
Yeah, I can rattle through this because I just wrote a story about it for The Athletic tomorrow.
Really?
I think there are a couple things. One thing I would say that few fans know and you hear about, but I have a few examples in this book, are his competitiveness. People thought, he's going to MLS just to retire. He's not very competitive. There are a couple anecdotes in this book that prove that very wrong. They go into just how much Messi cares, and I'll give you one of them, which is that in his first meeting, at the day that he was in the facility signing his contract, kind of fake signing his contract with Inter Miami. They do all the promotional photos. He had signed the real one already at his house, but he comes in to take these photos. He's in his suit, pink tie for Inter Miami, signs this photo, takes the pictures and goes up to the sporting director's office. And in the office is Chris Henderson, the sporting director at the time, the ownership group, Jorge Mas, Jose Mas, David Beckham, and Lionel Messi. And Messi sits down and he says to the group around him, "Okay, tell me all the trophies I can win." And I love that line. It's one of the favorite things I learned of reporting, because it just shows in one moment how serious he was right from the beginning. Tell me all the trophies I can win. That's what he was coming there to do. He wasn't coming there to retire. He still wanted to win. And there's another moment that I have from inside the locker room in Saudi Arabia.
I like that. Tell me all the trophies.
Yeah.
I like that.
So there's that side of it. I think also, he really tried very quickly to ingratiate himself into the locker room. I think that's evolved and changed Messi's place in Inter Miami's locker room over the years as I've been reporting and writing the book. But at the beginning, Messi took pains to make sure he was as much one of the guys as he could be. And there are some moments in the book behind the scenes of things he did with the team that were efforts to just be one of the guys. And one anecdote that people love is that, for example, the captain of the team went up to him nervously, sheepishly, and said, "Listen, we have this team WhatsApp chat. Everyone on the team is in this group chat. Do you want to be in it? Like, how do you ask Messi for his phone number?" And Messi very calmly was like, "Yeah, of course. Like, here's my phone number. Put me in the chat, please." And
wow, this is pressure.
Yeah, and like later that day, a player not realizing that the number that got added to the chat was Messi said, "Hey, does anyone have a way to get extra tickets for this event that's unveiling Messi to the world as a Miami player?" And Messi jumped in the chat and said, "Hey, it's me, it's Messi. I'm happy to get you any tickets that you need for your family." So that,
oh my gosh,
as well. So those are two things that I delve into: the competitiveness, but also like really truly understanding that Messi, what Messi lives in is a world where he's constantly in the spotlight and he's constantly being judged against a legacy of the greatest of all time. And there are very few people that can relate to that. Yeah, he's not competing against his contemporaries. He's competing against Maradona. He's competing against Pelé. And that's why for him, every game matters. Because if he were to come to MLS and not win MLS Cup, then people would say, well, Pele came to America and he won the NASL. You couldn't come to an America and win MLS. So everything matters to Messi because it's a different level of comparison. And there are moments in the book that I make that clear as well.
Yeah. I was thinking when I was reading, like, he's global. Like, this is massive global. And I'm like, Miami? So I was still kind of thrown off, like, how, but you did say it was 3 years in the making, and it's not something that just happened. But it just kind of took me off guard. Like, I'm sure he had global opportunities. Like,
he turned down over $1 billion with Saudi Arabia, a contract that would have paid him over $1 billion.
Okay, yes.
So, he definitely had options to come back. I think if Barcelona wasn't such a mess, maybe he would have ended up back in Barcelona. But this really did give him a chance to have more of a balance in his life, because there's less pressure in MLS for sure than there would be back in Barcelona or other places. And it's a different type of pressure, though. Like I just explained, Messi feels a pressure against his own legacy that's always there with him. But he also has some semblance of balance in his life that he doesn't normally have. Yes, he can't go to there was that moment he went to the grocery store. You see he gets swarmed when he goes to restaurants and grocery stores. Even when he's driving, people will jump out of their cars to get autographs in the middle of the street when he drives by them. So it's not a normal existence where, like, for example, Thierry Henry used to be able to get on the PATH train to go to Red Bull Arena to play soccer games. Messi could never get on the PATH train, but he is able to have a little bit more balance in his life, a little less pressure in his day-to-day. And that's something I think he really treasures. And I think that's something he knew he could get in America, in the United States, that he wouldn't have been able to get had he signed anywhere else.
Well, I think he could come to the Doc Bookshop, and if we can get him to the Doc Bookshop,
no doubt.
I promise we won't fan out. No, I don't know. I've been really pushing this. But who do you think, we're at that projection, let me back up real quick. You guys, the Messi Effect. You go to our website, thedocbookshop.texas. You can get this book. It is going to be a part of our book bundles. So if you purchase this book, all the books in this series, you'll get the rest of the books, and you'll be entered into a drawing to get the rest of the books that were a part of this series. So just if you purchase the book, you have a chance to get all the books and maybe some other books. So again, go to our website, thedogbookshop.com or .texas, and get this book. Yes, this is one of our features for the whole World Cup. I mean, we're going to cut out the virtual, and everything is going to be in-store activity in the community, outside, out of this virtual, in your face. So wherever you see us at throughout the summer, 9 times out of 10, we're going to have the Messi Effect book. And so I think they're going to send me some signature ones too. So I think we're good there. So yes, the Messi Effect. I need you to go and get this book. It actually releases tomorrow on June 2nd. But Dallas, let's show up and support this author, especially that he came to our platform. He could be, again, he is global. Like, he could have been anywhere, but he's with the Dog Bookshop tonight. So I am just honored, and I've been fanning out with him, stalking him since, again, last year. So we're going to rock this book out. And I thought I wasn't going to get a chance to, but it still was on my radar to work with. So yeah, thedocbookshop.com, get this book. Now, what is your projection? I'm gonna have to come back at you if if you're wrong. Like,
yeah, look, I think it's going to be France. Like, a lot of people are picking Spain, and I think Spain is a great team. The way that they're built, they're going to be, they deserve to be the favorites. But man, the attacking weapons on France's roster, I just can't get over it. I think they are just going to be so dangerous, so difficult to deal with. So many killers on that team, so many ways they can beat you. They've been in 2 consecutive World Cup finals, so it'll be hard to do 3 in a row. But I think it's going to be France. That's my prediction. I got France to win it, and I got the U.S. getting to. You know what? Let's go out on a limb. I got the U.S. getting to a quarterfinal. I want it to happen. I want the country to get behind them, and certainly would be nice if the country got a little bit more curious about American soccer and about the Messi effect. That wouldn't be a bad thing either. But I really think that, watching them the other night in Charlotte in front of a pro USA crowd, you could see them feeding off the energy of the fans. They're going to have that in every game this summer. So I'm going to have them do something special and get to a quarterfinal.
I am. Well, if I can make any impact, I'm just going to be talking about it and really decorate the store with. And you're helping me. I said, sis, I had a hard time. I shouldn't. I'm so transparent sometimes because I've been trying to get him on this platform or just trying to do something with his book, anything with a book. Even if I got signature books, I was going to be cool. But I said, I am going to ask him. We got some 60 by 60 windows, and I said, I actually took a picture of my window. Let me just say, and I said, I'm going to tell you to tell me what to do with this last window. Let me see. I can't do because it's on my phone. Let me see if I can let you see it. And oh, here it is. I don't know. Hopefully you can see it. Can you see? It's probably a shadow. I don't know. Oh my gosh, it's a shadow, and I don't think I can share it. I don't think I could share it. I don't know. I probably have to go. No, I probably. Well, it's 60 by 60. Imagine 60 by 60, 360 by 60 window. So I do have a soccer goal in one of the windows.
Nice.
No, so what happened was, one of the other authors, I think he zoomed down on the store, and he said, Donya, you don't realize what you're up for. You're going to have, say you had 300,000 come in. Well, they're going to come in for another 300,000 is going to come in. They're just going to keep coming in. What are you going to do about your windows? You got to do something with your windows. You gotta do something. I said, oh my gosh, okay. And so I got this 60 by 60, and one of them is actually I guess I'm going to take a picture and put it on social media so you can see it. After you tell me what I'm going to put in that third window. So with the soccer ones is in the second window, and with the soccer goal and soccer balls in the window.
Yeah.
But then there's the other one. So what
we gotta get? We gotta get a U.S. soccer crest up in there, and gotta get maybe something from the World Cup logo or something like that, so that people know you got your soccer books. And look, we're on this show right now, but I'll tell you what. If U.S. finishes second in their group and they come to Dallas, you better bet I'm coming down to visit you, to see you while I'm in Dallas.
I'm going to pray.
I can't wait. I can't wait to come and see it.
You're really stuck with me right now. Like, I know the next 2 months you're really stuck with me. And when I get these windows done, I'm going to say this one is inspired by you. The
Perfect.
USA team, the Crest team, and some World Cup. I do have some World Cup. I do have some stuff on the front door as well. I have to. I probably. We
gotta get you a Messi Effect book cover to put on there too. Of course, I gotta tell my team we gotta figure something out.
Oh, I'm gonna get the book cover. Yeah, that's gonna happen. Well, right now it's small. What's on there now is small, but I'm gonna get a bigger one, and so yeah.
I love it.
I wish I had it saved because I took the pictures. I said I am going to show him this because
you got to send it over to me. Send it over to me, and we'll take a look. We'll come up with something good.
Okay, and I'm going to say this one is inspired by Paul. Okay, perfect. Paul. So if people wanted to reach out to you, how can they reach out to you?
That's right. You can find me on Twitter at Paul Tenorio, on X. You can find me on Instagram at Paul Tenorio Soccer. On TikTok now, I just started doing that. You got to be able to do everything nowadays. I'm on TikTok at Paul M Tenorio. So look me up on social media. Find me. I am going to try on my social media, on my Instagram, and on this TikTok especially, to take people a little bit behind the scenes of what it looks like to cover a World Cup, to kind of be behind the scenes with the team, or as a journalist, just what it's like to kind of be trying to cover a World Cup. So come along with me to that journey. But you can find all my work at The Athletic and on those social media handles. And I hope, not only do I hope you read the book, but I hope you come along with our coverage at The Athletic, because it is free all summer long. All of our World Cup coverage at The Athletic is free. So no reason not to read what we're doing at The Athletic. But come along with us on this World Cup journey. We're going to be covering every team. We're going to have people on the ground every single game. So check us out at The Athletic.
Okay, and I'll share that link too. So when I get a chance, I'll share
Perfect.
that link to make sure we have it, and make sure I have a dedicated page to the World Cup on our website. So I'll make sure I'll get that link out there for everybody. And I just really appreciate you considering the little people.
Oh, I'm so happy to do this.
Trying to do a world thing.
It makes me so happy. It makes me so happy to do it. Like I said, this summer is a special opportunity for those of us who have worked in American soccer and all these different places, people who work with teams and in federations, all that, but also the journalists have covered the sport like we've talked about for 2 decades. It means a lot to me. And my job is to help people connect to the game. That's what I do by telling these stories. So I'm so happy to be here with you to tell some of the stories here and hopefully to find some more people to connect with the game.
Oh, yes. I'll send you our book display. And I just want to say thank you just for spending time with us this evening. And I took you away from your children. I truly want to thank them as well for taking time, for letting us have you this afternoon, because family, especially in this sport, I have found family is extremely important and crucial. So I truly thank you. I thank you, everybody that have tuned in, that have asked questions. Yes, we're probably going to replay this 101 times and send clips out. But thank you, everybody that gave us your time this evening. Again, thank you for tuning in to Doc Live TV and their coverage of the Road to the Cup. Thank you.